Hello, hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Self to Society. My name is Dennis Gable. I am your host. And today we're going to start a 3-part series on time and space. Time and space are very interesting conversations to have because they are sometimes very unique. There's a bag under my foot. They're sometimes very unique and personal and independent concepts, even though we all share in many ways the same time and space. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, no matter where in the world you live. We all have days, weeks, months, years, and yet time and space is an interesting conversation to have as it relates to your mental health, as it relates to who you are as a human, as it relates to how you best serve this physical bag of bones that we get the privilege of operating with. And so episode 1 of this series, not episode 1, this series, geez Louise words. This particular episode is the first of 3, and this is about aloneness. So the 3 topics that we're going to cover are aloneness, loneliness, and solitude. What in the fuck is aloneness? Aloneness, in my particular opinion, is somebody's choice, typically, to spend time alone. This probably has a few different meanings, so we'll explore those. Somebody's choice to spend time alone. Somebody's choice to make their quote circle smaller. Somebody's choice to be alone particularly. This may sound a lot like solitude, but I'm going to challenge that idea. So aloneness, for me, doesn't have a particular bend of value. It just is a separation between you and other people. Sometimes this separation is forced. Sometimes we don't get to be alone by choice. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we have friends that walk away, we have partners that walk away, we have different relationships that move and change. Going from being a 2-parent household to a single-parent household creates some aloneness. Changing the dynamics of your social life, changing the dynamics of how you choose to spend your time with other people are all relevant and relative. They're relevant and relative both to aloneness. Being alone doesn't have to be a bad thing. Many of us struggle with being alone because we are so used to being surrounded by people, even if that time is spent digitally, even if it's spent with technology and social media and these different ways that we find ourselves, quote unquote, connected to people. When we are forced into or choose the separations from that, it's going to cause some mental problems. It's going to fuck with you, at least a little bit, if not a lot of it. And another area of aloneness is not just being physically by yourself, but it's choosing to create better relationships with social media, better relationships with technology, better relationships with the things that we do to keep us engaged, even if we're by ourselves. So that could be playing games on your phone, it could be playing video games, it could be things that generally are built to maybe distract us, but even more so keep us engaged in something. I think television can be a part of that, but I also believe that television can be a very helpful tool to guide you through some aloneness. Music is another tool that can help guide you through some aloneness. Being with yourself is going to take work. If you have never chosen or had an opportunity to just be with yourself, there's going to be a period of time where those dopamine hits aren't there. You're going to feel a little bit low, depressed, anxious. You're going to have thoughts that fuck with your self-worth. You're going to have thoughts that would lead you to believe that you're either too much or not enough, depending on what side of the spectrum or how that pendulum swings. And so the general theory of aloneness, when you pursue it or when it finds you, is going to fuck with you. Here are some ways to to assist yourself in aloneness. And let me say this, I recommend aloneness for everybody. I think every single human should spend a season in aloneness. You don't have to make it forever. It does not have to be a permanent thing. Matter of fact, it should not be a permanent thing, because ultimately we are communal beings. We're creatures who feed and fuel off of the life source that other energetic humans give us. There's scientific theory that we are just a few molecules away from being just like the sun. And so with some of that data, we can look at other humans, and it helps us to understand why we feel the physical, emotional, spiritual connections that we feel with other humans, because we are looking at similar versions of ourselves. This is one of the reasons why vulnerability is so extremely powerful. Because when somebody chooses to be vulnerable with you, what they're doing is they're taking their energy and they're allowing you to have access to it, knowing that it could hurt you, knowing that you could be emotionally harmed. Vulnerability literally means I am giving you the ability to harm me. To be vulnerable means I am able to be harmed. Literally, how the words break down, that's what it means. And so the vulnerability of that is necessary for all humans, I believe, to have a stronger mindset. I don't even love that word particularly, but to have a strong and stable mindset, to find self-worth, to find value, and specifically in the realm of getting to know yourself. You've, at this point, probably heard me say ad nauseum that in order to love yourself, you have to first understand yourself, and in order to understand yourself, you have to first know yourself. And that knowing has to happen in the midst of some aloneness. Not has to. The elevated experience of knowing yourself, I believe, happens in those times of aloneness. I've spent the better part of 15 years trying to wrap my head around vulnerability, and 15 years, about 15 years. Trying to wrap my head around vulnerability, trying to understand things like shame, grief, guilt, and what I learned is that for me, it wasn't until I was willing to submit to aloneness that I really figured out how to be vulnerable. Because I was hiding from myself more than I was hiding from everybody else. I was fact-telling, and I was saying all of these things very publicly, sharing dark and embarrassing parts of my life publicly, and yet the person that I was running from was myself, because I wasn't giving myself an opportunity to get to know me. And so aloneness is paramount and necessary for this journey. And again, it should not last forever. It should be a season. So entering into that season, here are a few ways that you can allow aloneness to be beneficial. One could be words. What are the right words? The first step in that is analyzing and taking an audit, for lack of better terms, of your social structure. Who do you spend time with? Who are you around? How are you spending your time and money? There's some thoughts and theories that you show me how you spend your time and money, I'll show you what you care about. And I used to think that was bullshit until I put that mirror up to my own face and I realized that it's not bullshit. It's actually pretty fucking accurate. That the people you spend time with and what you go spend your money on really does show what you value. And so taking an audit of your social circle, of the people that you keep around you, of what you're doing to fill your time will give you a true sense of what you currently value at that point. Cut some people out. Not everybody should be in your life. It's impossible for us to have 100 good friends, let alone maybe 20 good friends. I mean, people that you very intentionally spend your life with. It's very, very hard. And so I'm not telling you to fire all your friends or to whatever, but I would suggest creating some distance in that audit, seeing who values you equal parts that you value them. Those people should stay at the top of the list. The people who you don't think value you in the same way that you value them, they should fall down the list. And the people at the bottom third of the list can become check-in text friends. Hey friend, how you been? But they're not worth choosing to go spend your time with if they don't value you the same way that you value yourself. or you value your relationship with them. And that's hard to admit. It's hard to look at. It's hard to even say out loud to yourself that like, man, I really love this person, or I value them, or I care about them, and they don't love me back the same way. They don't care about me the same way. They don't value our friendship in the same way that I value our friendship. So those people fall to the bottom third. The top third is really, it's the cream of the crop. It's the upper echelon. It's the people that are worthy of your time and space because there's an equal, at least, exchange of love and value. Once you do that audit and you see that there's probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 people, sometimes it's one person, that values you equally as you value them. Those are your people. Pour into them, double down on them, give everything you got to those people in the time and space. So that's one way to start to prepare your world for some aloneness. The second would be hobbies. Figuring out something that you like to do just because you like to do it. That hobby can be sitting your ass on your couch with the lights off and a Netflix series running. It could be journaling, it could be paddleboarding, it could be playing a sport, it could be just choosing, it could be going to the gym, it could be being creative, painting, drawing, writing music. It could be anything that you want to do and value because it makes you feel safe, it makes you feel alive, it gives you that dopamine release that we're having to replace from all of these other relationships. Let me add a caveat here that social media should be put into your social audit. How do you engage on social media? Your phone will tell you how much time you spend on certain apps and on your screen and some of that stuff. And so take a look at that, and it probably is going to piss you off. I did this a couple years ago for the first time, and when I saw that I was on my phone for 6, 7, 8 hours a day, I was fucking astounded because I know that I wasn't doing anything of true value on that device for that amount of time. It's a hard pill to swallow. So I do believe that social media should fit into that social audit. Manage your relationship with social media. How often are you just scrolling and looking and allowing your brain to become numb because everybody else's life is quote unquote better than yours, which leads to poor self-esteem, which leads to greater anxiety, which leads to depression, which leads to feelings of unworthiness. And so in that audit, taking another true look at what values you in the same way that you value it. I've made a decision to become more of a giver to social media than a taker from social media. Please don't misunderstand me. I do still sit and doom scroll from time to time, but it is far less today than it was a year ago, a couple years ago. So that audit, or that element, should be in that audit as well. Back to hobbies. Picking a hobby. Hobbies are hard. Some of us don't even know what the fuck we like because everybody else around us has told us what we should do and what we should like and what we should engage in, and we've sacrificed what we love and what we like and what we want to do for the approval of other people for most of our life. I know some people who they've wanted to dance or sing or play guitar their whole lives, and they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they've never done it because they were always too afraid of what everybody else was going to think. This season of aloneness allows you to explore those things without judgment. It allows you to just sign up at a dance studio and nobody knows. It allows you to take guitar lessons. It allows you to fuck up 30 canvases before you get that painting right in the comfort of your own living room. It allows you that freedom to start to explore the things that you've always wanted to explore. Pardon me while I take a drink. So finding a hobby, finding something that can be time that you spend with you because it's good for you, not because you're escaping, not because you're running away, not because anything else. The third thing is to invest in a tool. I'm biased to this one, obviously. However, investing in tools help you to manage the negative feelings that come from this season of aloneness. Because there will certainly be negative feelings. There will certainly be the management of anxiety, depression, decreased self-worth, all of those things. That does happen. I can't sugarcoat that shit. It is real and it happens, and you have to be aware of it before you step into the season, or else you'll find yourself like fucking worse off than you were before, and that's not the goal. The goal is greater emotional health, greater emotional intelligence, greater knowing of yourself to then grow into that understanding. Understanding, I believe, comes out of this season of aloneness if you're intentional with it. I'm going to make a suggestion that a lot of people are not going to like. During the season of aloneness, don't find something else to take care of. I see this a million times a day on social media where people, they replace humans with pets and animals, and they replace human relationship with another thing to take care of because somehow we find so much value in taking care of something else. I'm going to highly recommend against filling that time with taking care of something else. If you're a single parent, or a parent in general, you already have the pressure of taking care of something. If you're a single parent, my schedule with my ex-wife is week on, week off. So when I am with child, it's fucking full on, and I don't get much aloneness. Sometimes when I put him to bed, I get the chance to have an hour to myself before I need to go to sleep as well, but I don't have the same aloneness that I have in my week off time where I get the freedom to choose how I operate for that week. So I'm going to highly recommend that you not replace this time with something else to take care of. After you get through a season of aloneness, 3 months, 2 months, 6 months, 2 years, whatever that time is, and you want to introduce something like a pet, like a puppy, like a kitty, like something to take care of, great. But give yourself the time and space to just be alone. That is the whole premise. Is aloneness. And some of you are going to fight me deeply on that because animals can be very loving and they can seem very empathetic and all of those things. And this is not the episode for me to challenge or argue those things. I just know that filling the time with something else to take care of will take away the value that you can give yourself during a season of aloneness. So, those are the 3 things. Audit your social circle. Find a hobby or something that gives you space to be yourself with yourself. And again, that can be Netflix. As long as you're not Netflixing for 6 hours a day, because then you're just replacing one like mindless distraction with another. So find a show that you really love, watch that show. I think that is fine. Spending that time by yourself, creating those boundaries to put your phone in your bedroom. Turn your phone off, put on Do Not Disturb. I have a stand that my phone charges on, and so a lot of nights I'm unavailable in the evening, especially later in the evening, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, because I've put my phone away and I'm just choosing to be with myself as opposed to giving into my ADHD or my desires to like see what's on Instagram and scroll away. And I don't do that every day, but I've created certainly a better practice of having that boundary and living into that boundary when it makes the most sense for me in those moments. And then the third is don't replace people with other things to take care of. Don't replace one burden for another, please. So, aloneness is hard. I'm going to say that 100 times. But I do believe that for those of you willing to want to get to know yourself so that you can understand yourself and love yourself, aloneness is a pivotal point. And I wouldn't have ever known until I forced myself into it. So many of my experiences are just me experimenting with myself. And so I didn't know that I needed aloneness to learn more about how to be vulnerable and to learn more about myself in ways that allow me to be more protective of my time and space and who I engage with and how I spend that time. But getting through a season of aloneness was really fucking beautiful and necessary. And that's why I'm sharing my story with you today. And again, this should be a season. It should not be your new normal. Your new normal should not be being alone. Audit your social circle. Pick the upper third, that upper echelon, the cream of the crop of people that value you the way that you value them. Take a look and an audit and an examination of how you spend time on your phone and social media and the ways that you consume as opposed to the ways that you give and engage. Find a hobby and don't replace that time with just something else to take care of. I appreciate you guys very much for listening. The next episode is going to be on loneliness, which is going to be an even fucking harder topic to talk about. But next week, we'll get into loneliness, and then the third episode of this series will be on solitude. So thank you so much. Take the time to do these audits. In the notes, I'll list these 3 things. If you need assistance, or if you feel stuck in how to audit these people, or how to take a look at your life in this way, how to really separate yourself to be alone, please reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with you to help you walk through what it means to create the boundary of time and space so that you can have some aloneness. Until next time, my friends, I appreciate you very much, and I'll see you again soon.